this?
He's just a little boy who came with the house. And he died of...
but he wasn't on the lease.
That was my next question. Was he on the lease?
So hello everyone, welcome back to Ascension Diaries channel. It's so lovely to have you guys on here. And we are here with Liz and Giuseppe, and we are going to be having a lovely fireside chat. And there's a few options of discussion on the table, but we're just going to flow with it and have a lovely Sunday morning discussion. And so how are you doing? How has your weekend been, our lovely guests?
All these Ascension energies are like, I'm tuning into them right now. So yesterday was like wild, but other than that, pretty chill.
Yeah.
Other than the wild energies going on, life has been manageable.
Other than the event like imminent in our existence, you know. DNA transformation and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm. It was an intense weekend. The full moon was pretty intense too, and there's a lot of like, I guess, shadow stuff coming up. I've noticed for a lot of people as we kind of get into this ascension, and then the energy's just getting more and more intense. And yeah, it's been pretty crazy. I've noticed a lot of instability, but good instability, like shake things up and shake them out instability.
Yeah, last week that's what I was going through.
Yeah, definitely. But at least we know that, you know, after the chaos comes this reorganization at a higher level. So it's like not so bad, but for people who aren't aware of the process we're going through, it's got to be hard, you know. So
yes, I've been thinking about that too. It's a lot. I found that especially with this full moon, it was very like, it was plucking my heartstrings, like, and triggering me in like little tiny ways, but then it was just like poof, and it coming out of me, and I'm just like frustration, and all of a sudden it's like it just blasts out of you and it clears and resets itself, and then you're like, oh, that's over.
Yeah. That level. Yeah.
Why don't we quickly go into, because we know we've had Liz and Giuseppe on the show before, but I was hoping that you would give yourselves an introduction and introduce yourself to the audience about who you are and what you do and how you've been serving everyone with all of your time and energy and love.
So I'm Janet Raptis, and I'm a master healer and intuitive development teacher. I've been working in this field for 15 years. I basically do, you know, most things connected with energy and how energy works and how we interact with energy. And that goes, I mean, that's everything from like, you know, intention setting and ritual to healing to spiritual growth, et cetera, et cetera. And I work, you know, have an office in Atlanta. Most of my business is remote. We also do house clearings, and I lead retreats and workshops and all kinds of good stuff in that area. Yeah.
A busy person.
Yeah.
I'm a general creative person. I singer-songwriter, script writer too, and channel photographer, and yes. So relating to this, mostly do psychic work in person with people and channel.
Yeah. And we've just recently been starting to do some work together, which is, I mean, well, we do house clearings together, but Scott supported my last Energy Explorers retreat, and he's going to be with me for the next 2 as well. And so that's been a lot of fun. Yeah, the
retreats are great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Perfect. And with that, I guess, is a perfect segue into discussing house clearing. You mentioned that the two of you are doing house clearings together. Can you explain to people who haven't heard of that before what a house clearing would involve and what it's for?
Yeah, so, you know, a lot of times the actual physical people and objects that are in the house aren't the only things that are in the house or on the land around the house. And homes and land hold the energetic imprints of things that came before. Energy can imprint itself. That could show up in earthbound spirits, which we also know of as ghosts. You know, entities that haven't, or, you know, people who have died but not crossed over. It can also show up as like an imprint. So maybe the person did cross over, but at the time of death, there was something so impactful that it was like recorded and
Mhm.
programmed into the energy of the place. We see that a lot. Here in the South, you know, we are right in the middle of where a lot of Civil War battles were fought.
Right.
And our neighborhood was, you know, one of those. And so there's just a lot of energy of bloodshed and death, and there's heaviness in it. And it's interesting because a lot of it really correlates to.
But still a good place to live.
It's still a great place to live. I know.
It's just like, there's a lot of death and a lot of ghosts, but we manage.
Managed.
But it's
Yeah.
true. There's a lot of underneath energy that
Mhm.
that maybe some people wouldn't notice, but they may recognize as that they're kind of uneasy. Most people can identify a room in their house that they're not comfortable in,
Mhm.
or people visiting will notice a house that they don't really like to visit much. And it's funny that when we do a house clearing or we do it for businesses as well, and there'll be the room that's the ickiest will be the least used.
Mhm.
Right.
Or the one used by, you know, unfortunately, a person who's maybe not well mentally or health-wise.
Yeah, that's
Also.
one thing that shows up a lot is that people don't understand, like, you know, I don't know, since I moved into this house, I've been really depressed, right? And sometimes, I mean, sometimes there's other factors, but a lot of times you go into a place, the energy there is depressed, maybe then you become depressed, and then you start feeding, right? There becomes this interaction where the energy continues to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And as that energy gets denser and denser, then other things can start being attracted to it, and so forth and so on. And things can be attracted to the light too. I mean, the reason that I started doing house clearings was because my then 10-year-old son had his sort of spiritual awakening, and we lived in a place that had a portal, and they started flocking into our house like out of control, and the dog was freaking out and the cat was freaking out, and my son had, I mean, there were dead people everywhere. And so I at first I didn't know what to do, and I moved, and then we moved to a different house, and then, you know, they all showed up again, and I had to learn, I had to figure out like how to take care of my space.
And this is before we met, luckily,
Yeah.
because it probably wouldn't have happened. I probably would sense there was something wrong with the house.
Yeah. And
How many people am I dating?
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, it was a really intense period. You know, my son, it was very unsettling for him, of course. He had to, in his bedroom, we had him all in the yard. So I had to learn like how, I mean, I was already crossing people over, but the more we crossed over, the more they came, right? Like they were like, oh, this is the place with the light. Let's go to the place with the light, you know? And I felt like in the second home, like we had an infestation. Like it felt like an infestation of dead people. And so I had to learn how to set boundaries, energetic boundaries, and how to clear the land and how to clear the space and how to be like a badass, basically, like an energetic badass. And then when we met, Scott was like, oh, I was like, I'm going to go do a clearing for a client. She'd come to see me in my office, and she's like, there's something going on in my house. And Scott was like, I want to go with you. And it was
cool.
Yeah,
it's very
loved
validating
it.
because when there's you're in a physical environment and you're feeling something physically in you, and then getting for me clairvoyant images and I get everything. But to get that and to be next to someone who's more experienced than I am, see the same things, just a little differently, get the information a little differently. But that's so validating. Like just for instance, the other day, it's validating for both of us. We were at a place that had gigantic Civil War battle was. I won't go into the details to leave the client anonymous, but the land had officers on it, and it was a hospital basically, and a lot of bloodshed. And after we did a clearing of the land, and by the way, the land asked us this. The land said, "We got this. Just let go." Like telling all the entities and all the energy of the battle to let go and just because that's what land does. It just takes people back to the earth. And so we got that general message. And as we started clearing the land, Janet said, "You see people coming from?" We were on the front steps facing the land. She says, "You see people coming out behind us?" Coming out of the house, and I tuned in. I'm like, oh my God, I do. And this little girl came up and touched me on the shoulder, and I said, "Do you see a little girl?" Because I wasn't expecting that, because it was a Civil War hospital, I wasn't thinking. And I was like, "Did you see a little girl?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you describe her?" She said, "She's blonde and in a white, or light-haired and in a white dress," and that's exactly what I saw. So when you have two people, two intuitives together, and they see the same thing, I mean, there's no denying it, and it's such a great feeling to have something about it being physical versus us meditating come up with the same thing. I don't know, it's that we're in a physical environment. It's just an amazing experience.
Yeah, and very gratifying, very fulfilling, because it really helps. I mean, for the physical world, right? It helps the people who are living there, because we've had people who can't sleep in rooms and who are experiencing all sorts of things, depression, anxiety, and so forth and so on. But it's really gratifying for the spiritual realm as well, because you really get to help these people who are trapped, who feel like they won't be forgiven, who feel like they're lost, who feel, they're having all of these still staying in a traumatic energetic vibration that's not allowing them to move on. And very gratifying with the land as well.
Yeah, I learned that a lot. That was our most recent one. I really learned that the land has such intelligence and says, you guys are the ones that are caught up on death. The land's not caught up on death. This is life, death, life, death. This is what I do. Dead leaves, I go back in the earth, tree grows, dead leaves. This is what I do. It's like, it was just saying, chill out. You guys can kill each other all you want, but we'll take care of everything else.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it's almost as if even in the spiritual realm, it's fighting this energy is almost fighting the natural flow of things.
Yeah.
So you're basically releasing, like you're almost like untangling energy and releasing it back to like the flow.
Yeah, I'm getting lit up on that. That was a good one. Yes, that's exactly.
That's so cool. I haven't heard about that with the land too. And I really, really like that, because it's a whole aspect of it that people don't even seem to cover.
Never.
Well,
Never.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's part of the problem is, we do cover the land in certain areas where there's portals, and they've, in this case, they asked us to tell the owners for the owners, because you have to take ownership of the space too. If you allow entities to fill your space, then you've got to take ownership of it. We can clear it, but if you don't take ownership of it and fill the space, then things could come back.
Yeah.
But in this case, that they told us, which was I've never heard before, is for the owners to tell the house to please work with the land, because the house is a construct of human consciousness, and so it carries human consciousness with it. And they're saying, tell the house it's yours, tell it to work with the land, because it was actually blocking the wind coming off the field, which would have cleared that part of the house more, that part of the land.
I love that.
It was beautiful. It was amazing. I mean, how can we make up that? It's like, I wouldn't have thought of that. So it's just beautiful.
And I want to say something. I want to speak to what Scott said about taking ownership of the space, right? Because I think that is really so important. I mean, one of the things that I teach in every time, anything I'm teaching, in any type of boundary, in the physical realm and the spiritual realm, is that, we have complete sovereignty over our energy and our space. And we get to determine what's in it and what's not in it. And if we hold a hard boundary of like, I allow only this, then other things can't come in. It's hard sometimes to get to that, but it's really holding that space. If once it's cleared out, it's like, no, like nothing can come in here. Like we have Teddy in here, and Teddy has stayed. He's a lot less active than he used to
who he
be.
is.
He's just a little boy who came with the house. And he died of
but he wasn't on the lease.
That was my next question. Was he on the lease?
No, I didn't even mention it. It's like we're feeding someone else.
And he, runs around the house and so forth and so on. Everybody who lives here has experienced him, even the naysayer in the family. And
Nice.
Yeah, and because he hangs out in the hallway by the bedroom.
You just see him as a flash of white, mostly, like out of the corner of your eye.
Playing and having fun, and I've tuned into like should we cross him over or whatnot, and then that might happen at some point in time. He seems very contented right now. Before we leave, I'll certainly tune in again and see where that is. I mean, spirits have free will too, but he's not disrupting us, but we did have to set some boundaries with him. But other than that, and we have an agreement with him, there's nothing in this house. I mean, since I've come here, since I cleared the last space, there's nothing. I mean, I have like everything set up here so that nothing can get in here unless it's something that I intentionally call in. So, and everybody has the ability to do that.
Yeah, we did. I just did posted a blog about the worst one that we had to deal with entity-wise, and I call him the dunce cap demon because I walked into a room and there was where the epicenter was in this back corner of the house, and there's a gigantic armoire, and I was just asked, I said, kind of show yourself, just in my mind's eye, I just said that, and then all of a sudden he appeared 8 feet tall, just standing in front of the armoire, with hands to his side like this, and his head a gigantic mouth with long teeth, and a cap on, and
wow.
Yeah, he was trying to scare us, but the deal is that that we enter an agreement when we get scared. We enter an agreement saying, I'm willing to allow you to have power over me. And that's where, fears comes when you don't feel empowered. And so I just gave him the power to show me something. And so I didn't get too afraid. I was pretty creepy. But it was the kind of thing that you don't have to be psychic. If you're in there, you'd been creeped out anyway. This thing had been showing itself as various forms to the people in the house. And so, but he didn't scare me. And later on I asked, I was startled. And then later on I said, I just imagined what would he say? And in my ear, we can't cuss on this, can we? I don't know.
Go for it. I don't have any rules.
Get the fuck out in my ear. And I'm like, this is like Ghost Hunters. Where you? I didn't realize I was actually doing ghost hunting now, but I don't know why, because we taught house clearing. But anyway, but that was one where the people were the owner was a little afraid, but she was getting on top of it. She was taking power. Luckily this thing wasn't showing herself as we saw or as I saw it, and she certainly was showing itself more as a shadowy man. But she took power of it. She took control of that house, and got rid of it, and she filled it. And a lot of times it's plants, bringing plants in. Once again, we learned from the last one that's the earth thing.
Yeah, and I get that message a lot. But what Scott's saying is that once we cleared the house, once it was cleared and we cleared the land around it, because the land around it was a primary factor feeding what was happening there. And the place had been an old mill prior to being turned into housing. Is that we got recommendations from Spirit of what she could do to support taking ownership of the house. And she stepped right in and did it. And everything changed. And she still ended up moving, but in the time between, because the land all around there is just jacked up. It's just not a happy place. But it made it so that she could be there. She could be there until she was able to sell it and find a new place to live.
That's great. Great for the new owners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that article, Scott. That was creepy.
Yeah, I got a lot of unsubscribes on that one.
Oh no!
It's as soon as I released it, I got unsubscribed.
Oh
The demon thing, it triggers people.
Yeah.
You said something about plants. I just wanted to backstep on that. Was it something about plants you bring into your home, like a potted plant, and that brings?
It helps to
Earth.
energy.
Oh, cleanse. Okay.
They're like filters, just like they are with the air itself. So.
Yeah, and we'll notice sometimes in places that has very dense, heavy energy that the plants will really be suffering. So that could be one indication that there's something going on in your home.
Not just not having a green thumb.
Right, exactly.
A green demon will kill plants too.
Well, there you go.
The cool thing is we found one time in a business, they had 4 plants lined up against the window in one of the worst rooms energetically, what all of them were doing horribly, except for this one plant was robust. So we kind of took note of that plant. Maybe that kind of plant is better at fighting.
It was a peace lily, and in fact, they are.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I have right behind me. That's so funny.
So you're good. You're good to go.
Right. Shopping list, peace lily.
You'll want to clear the energy, right? And then bring in as much from the outdoors as you can into your home, because it really helps to keep it high vibrational.
Yeah, and it's just like anything else. Once you're in victim mode, you just keep attracting that. And any bad energies, basically, if you feel bad, you're a match to the bad energy, and it just keeps coming. So when we clear a home, we know if there's someone really sick in the home, like especially with addiction or whatever, it's almost useless to clear it, because they're going to attract it back. So if everyone's healthy in the home, everyone's doing well, mentally and emotionally, then the next step is to fill it with your love, with your family's love. And we'll go into a house and we'll notice one room, especially it tends to be like bedrooms or kitchens, are really filled with those people's energy. But then they may leave some room where they don't mess around. They don't go there because it doesn't feel good to start with. And so they never really push their love into that room. And that bad energy can stay there. And the energy, like we were saying, could be an imprint from someone's energy. It could be just like we've had before, where someone was just mentally unstable, like maybe bipolar or something like that, and anxious. And they spent a lot of time in a room, and that room felt anxious. I mean, this is real. This is not just because we're very sensitive to it, but I believe everyone can feel it to some extent.
Yeah.
So those things need to be cleared as well. Just leftover imprint energy from someone who's not in a good mental state.
Yeah. And anytime you clear anything, you want to really, the best way to manage that space is then to fill it with the energy you want to be in there. Love, grace, peace, whatever. And that's something you can do through prayer. That's something that you can do through putting an altar in there, but setting some sort of intention for it. You don't really want to leave a void, you want to put something really beautiful in there.
But there are some cases where you want to leave the energy in a room, and we have, like, one house had this wonderful grandfather energy. If you sat in this one chair, it just felt like you were hugged by a grandfather. And people were like, "We're not clearing this." We told the people about it, like, and they were like, "Yeah, no, that's fine." And then another cool thing is that if there's been an entity, or someone that's passed but hasn't left, what am I trying to say? Earthbound spirit or a ghost in that room, we found that people tend to decorate the room or be drawn to the room based on the ghost that's in the room. So we had one where the ghost was this like antebellum era woman with these special sleeves and white gloves and a hat, and we both saw her, and that was her room, and she had this like ledger about, like, maybe what to buy for the house or something. She was very prim, proper, and organized.
And it was her house still.
And it was her house, but that room was her room. But the interesting thing is, the owners, the wife chose to decorate that room, and it was very feminine. So it's like she just was drawn.
And it was all antique.
It was all antique. It fit the woman. So the room and the ghost drew that, like, "Oh, well, I'll take that piece of furniture." Like, "What do you got here? What are you moving in?" Yeah, this is the girls' room.
She moved on, but she wouldn't move on until we assured her that the house would be well taken care of.
Yeah, she left me the ledger. I saw her hold, like, she's like, "I'm leaving, but here, take this."
Wow.
A lot of the earthbound spirits can become very attached to their spaces.
And they do this, like we see soldiers doing the march over and over again. She was doing the "I'm taking care of this" over and over, just caught in a loop.
Oh.
That's why I think they drag the chain, the old stereotype of dragging the chains across the room or whatever, because that's what they were doing when they passed, or that's something they did daily as a routine.
I did actually feel that. I did actually hear chains, and I did readings in a bar in Savannah, and we could hear those heavy, thick chains being dragged across the floor. And it was one of the creepiest things ever. And afterwards, we were like, "What was the deal with the chains?" And they were like, "There used to be slave auctions down there."
No.
Heavy energy. And it's a bar now. I mean, imagine that, right? People in there completely obliterated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Savannah. Savannah's definitely got that, a lot of that going on. Anyone who's been there, I mean, you can feel it as you're entering
Oh yeah, no doubt.
the city. Like you can
You
just, the
can
energy
feel
gets
the air
denser and
changes,
denser.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool place.
Well, Liz, have you ever had any experiences with house clearing yourself? Like, have you had any?
Yeah. We had actually in Stockbridge where that was our first place together. It was my house and then G moved in, and I'd felt a little presence. In fact, when I went to look at the house and I took video of it, someone mentioned to me that in the window there was a face of a man, a benevolent looking man, but a face nonetheless. I'm like, wow, So I thought I could just sort of like do like an entity healing, and send him on, but I didn't really understand the whole concept of like spirits have free will too. So I mean, he stuck around, like he wasn't really going anywhere. So then fast forward after G and I were together, like what, a year? Not even a year.
Something around a year.
G had to fly out to Denver for like a day, but he was going to be gone one night.
I went to do an interview for the band The Answer, who was on tour with AC/DC that year.
Cool.
In the next. But anyway, and I'm in my hotel room, and we hadn't been apart overnight yet. That was the first time and one of the few only times. But
so I let him like watch me fall asleep.
So we
over
were on our laptops watching each other fall
G-chat
asleep
or whatever.
Yeah. And
so I had the TV on, and I never fall asleep with the TV on unless I'm with G. Like I don't like to sleep with the TV, but
it was in the corner of the room. And the bed was here, and the bathroom was there in the bedroom. And
so hold on, before you say what you're going to say, let me say at about, I don't know, 3 hours later, I woke up and the TV was off, and I didn't have a timer on it or anything. It was off. I'm like, okay, I just kind of fall back to sleep.
This was not a smart TV that tells you, oh, I've been on so long with no activity.
Yeah,
Do you
no smartness in that. Yeah, just like, it was off. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So the next day after G got back, he got back later that afternoon. I told him about the TV going off. He's like, oh, well, let me tell you what I saw.
Everything. Yeah, okay.
Oh, my God.
You go ahead.
All right. So what I saw was, first, she dozes off. I'm like, oh, how sweet or whatever, So I'm looking, and then I hear the toilet flush.
What?
The toilet bowl was probably 10 feet from her,
In the bathroom.
Yeah, in the bathroom. And I hear the toilet flush, and I'm like, who the hell's flushing the toilet? Because I'm watching her sleeping right in front of me like I'm watching you now. And I'm like, there's no one in the house. I would have seen or heard him by now. There's no way. So then the person, it wasn't a human, but the person walks by out of the bathroom, shuts the TV off. You want to talk about freaking out. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm freaking out. I'm on the phone trying to get my flight right now from Denver, that snowed in, by the way, back to Atlanta. No one could do anything. I'm sorry, sir. You have to call back in the morning. I'm like, you don't understand. People in the house with my wife, they don't want to know nothing about nothing. They don't understand this, right? So I'm freaking out, hearts banging, bang, 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 all night long as I'm trying to what the hell did what happened, I'm trying to process the toilet flushing itself. You know how many pounds it takes to get that little handle down? It's not like some ghost can just bump up against the handle. You got to push that puppy. Now, shut the TV off is a different story. Yeah. But anyway, so I get home, and I'm all freaked out looking, and she's like, oh, go ahead.
I woke up in the middle of the night. The TV was off. That was kind of strange. And so he begins to tell me what was in the room with me, the shadow that walked by the screen. And I'm like freaking out. And I don't think we've been apart
since overnight. Yeah. I had millions of opportunities to interview everybody you can name in music. I have no way.
I stayed at a friend's house.
If I can't fly out in the morning and fly back that night, I ain't going.
But when we left the house, we left whatever it was with the house. And toward the end, like near the end,
it was an older man, and like you were saying, a grandfatherly figure. Is a very nice person, a very nice feeling, spirit, whatever it was.
Really freaked us
There's
out,
nothing to where she was in danger, but I didn't know that as I'm watching her sleep in toilet bowls.
You cared about your energy bill, obviously.
Actually, the water bill was pretty steep.
Right before we left the house,
electricity bill.
Water bill.
So he could have been, but then
he might have had a urinary problem.
about 3 months before we left, we were sitting in the living room watching Ghost Hunters of all things. And on the show, we had a drum set set up in the corner of the room. G played drums at that point, and well, you still do, but the drum kit's not out. But anyway, we were watching Ghost Hunters, and one of the Ghost Hunters on the show was speaking to the spirit in the room he was in, and he said, "Give us a sign that you are here." And what was it, the cymbal?
The hi-hat.
The hi-hat on the drum in our room, in our living room.
Wow.
Oh
Dude,
my
it wasn't
God.
talking to you.
Nothing from the mantle like behind you was next to the drum kit was in the corner like behind you, and nothing fell off. Nothing was on the ceiling that fell down.
The
There was
cat was
nothing.
in our laps.
Cat was in our laps at the time. We had the cat, Buttercup,
It was before
and
Daisy.
yeah, way before Daisy and the dogs. But nothing was there that could have done it other than when the guy said, "Give us a sign that you're here." And you talk about goosebumps from the your fingernails to the underneath your feet. It was freaky, man. Every hair stood up. It's like, what the hell? So you're looking around the room for something that could have possibly have flown, flew, dropped. Nothing. It was the thing did it. Whatever the thing was.
And I looked at, I'm like, I told the guy, I'm like, he wasn't talking to you. He was talking to the whoever on TV.
They quieted down. Their solo was one shot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that helped.
Clarify something that I said earlier, and just real quick, because Liz kind of touched on it too, is they do have free will, but always we have sovereignty over our space.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to clarify that for people who are listening.
Yeah.
So-
and I was like you, Liz, for a long time. I didn't know that you can just tell it to get the hell out.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is how I live life. So that's why I've never had a problem. But I moved into that house, so it was there already. So
Yes.
I had to.
And I probably was in some sort of agreement.
Oh
that you
yeah,
could say
yeah, that you didn't realize.
Yeah.
But I, through observation, knew that it was good. It wasn't bad. So I never had a problem with it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's like us with Teddy.
Yeah. The kid will run down the hall. And go
Yeah, I mean, we saw out of the corner of your eye, you saw stuff literally all the time, walking by or checking you out, or once in a while you'd catch its reflection in a window,
Mhm.
but it was inside the room. It wasn't on the other side of the window. And that happened a lot. And it's freaky on one hand, because again, your hair stands up on your arm or whatever. But on the other hand, you know it's not negative. You just feel it. You know it's not negative. So you just try to relax and don't let it know it's really there. So you can try to have some kind of positive interaction with it, so you can understand it. I guess as a human, that's what we want to do. I guess, but yeah. As soon as I knew there's no threat, I'm trying to figure out what's going on and trying to invite more little
He
things to
stayed
happen.
with the
but-
house. He didn't
Yeah,
come with us.
yeah, he stayed with the house.
We encountered other. Yeah, it was his house. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
We encountered other beings in other places, but never him
Oh,
again. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to cut you off, but we have about 20 seconds before the recording's going to be over. So if anyone wants to quickly blurt out one thing like saging or things like that for your house that are good to clear it, and then we'll say goodbye. I have 7 seconds.
Thank you, everybody, for today. This was fun, and
Yeah.
I'd love to do it again and pick up right where we left off.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
There we go.
Bye.